This is The Sleeping Beauty by the Grimm brothers. Actors and actresses, Bella, Brooke, Abby, Connor, Callie, Gabby, and Zoe. A long time ago, there were a king and queen who said every day,
if only we had a child.
but they never had one. But it happened that once when the queen was bathing, a frog crept out on the water onto the land.
Ribbit.
Your wish shall be fulfilled.
Ribbit.
Before a year has gone by,
Ribbit.
you shall have a daughter.
Ribbit.
What the frog had said came true, and my lovely wife bore a little girl who was so pretty that I could not contain myself for joy, and ordered a great feast, inviting kindred, friends, and the wise women, hoping that they would take to the child.
There were 13 wise women in our kingdom, but as we only had 12 golden plates for them to eat out of, we decided to only invite 12.
The feast was held with all manner of splendor, and when it came to an end, the wise women bestowed their magic gifts upon the baby.
To the lovely princess, I gave the gift of virtue.
To the lovely princess, I gave the gift of beauty.
To the lovely princess, I give the gift of riches.
And so on, the 12 wise women blessed the child with everything in the world that she could possibly wish for. However, after the 11th wise woman had made her promise, suddenly the 13th stormed in, wishing to avenge herself for not having been invited.
The king's daughter shall in her 15th year prick herself with a spindle and fall down dead.
Without saying a single word more, the 13th wise woman turned round and left the room. Everyone was shocked, but just then, the 12th wise woman stepped forward.
As my good wish still remains unspoken, I believe there is something that I can do. Though I cannot undo 13's evil sentence, I can change it. It shall not be death, but a deep sleep of 100 years into which the lovely princess shall fall.
I wish to keep my dear child from this most horrible misfortune. I henceforth order that every spindle in the whole kingdom to be burned.
Meanwhile, the gracious gifts of the wise women were so plentifully fulfilled on our lovely daughter. She was so beautiful, modest, good-natured, and wise, and everyone who met her was bound to love her.
It happened that on the very day the princess was 15 years old, the king and queen were not at home, and the maiden was left in the palace quite alone.
So I went round in all sorts of places, exploring rooms and bedchambers as I pleased, when I at last came to an old tower.
Up she climbed the narrow winding staircase and reached a little door. A rusty key was in the lock, and when she turned it, the door sprang open, and there in a little room sat an old woman with a spindle busily spinning her flax.
Good day, old dame. What are you doing there?
I am spinning, my dear.
What sort of odd thing is that, rattling around so merrily? It's such as I've never seen. I wish to try it as well.
But scarcely had she touched the spindle when the magic decree was fulfilled, and she pricked her finger with it. And in the very moment when she felt the prick, she fell down upon the bed that stood there and lay in a deep sleep. And this sleep extended over the whole palace. The king and queen, who had just come home, began to go to sleep, and the whole of the court with them, and at once everything fell still.
But round about our once spectacular castle, there began to grow a hedge of thorns which every year grew higher.
Finally, the thorn curved all the way around the castle so that nothing was left of our beautiful castle to be seen.
But the story of the beautiful sleeping Briar Rose, for so the princess was named, went about the country, so that from time to time king's sons came and tried to get through the thorny hedge into the castle. Though courageously they tried, not a single youth could find a way through, and were caught dying a most miserable death. After long, long years, a king's son came again to that country.
Come, boy, and hear the tale of the most impenetrable thorn hedge. It has been said that a castle stands behind it, concealing the most beautiful and kind princess by the name of Briar Rose, who has been fast asleep for 100 years. King, queen, and court with her. Many brave sons of kings from far and wide have attempted to reach the castle, but none have yet succeeded and have died the most pitiful death.
I am not afraid. I will go and see the beautiful Briar Rose. Do not try to dissuade me, old man, for I am quite determined.
But by this time, the 100 years had just passed, and the day had come when Briar Rose was to awake again.
As I came near to the thorn hedge, I found it was nothing but large and beautiful flowers, which parted from me from each other of their own accord. I passed unhurt, and they closed behind me again like a gate.
On further went the prince, and as he came to the great hall, he saw the whole of the court lying asleep. And up by the throne lay the king and queen. Still further he went on, deeper into the silent, still castle. At last he reached the tower in which Briar Rose lay fast asleep.
The There she lay, so beautiful that I could not pry my eyes from her. Down I stooped, laying upon her a kiss.
As soon as the young prince kissed her, Briarrose opened her eyes and awoke, and looked at him quite sweetly.
Then down we went together. My father the king and my mother the queen and all of the whole court awoke and stared at each other in great astonishment, and the castle awoke once more, lively as ever before.
And then the marriage of the king's son with Briarrose was celebrated with all splendor, and they all lived contented to the end of their days.